we've held a public hearing on Article 21, which as stated, shall we permit the public library to retain all money it receives from its income generating equipment to be used for general repairs and upgrading and for purchasing of books, supplies, and income generating equipment as per New Hampshire RSA 202 capital A colon 11 small a. This is just requires a simple majority to pass. And we close the hearing. Moving on. Scott Vien came to me last week and asked about the position of health officer. I explained briefly what it entailed. Asked him to submit, if he wanted to do it, is to submit a request to the board. I think that he asked if there were any special things that he had to do. And it just requires following the rules.
There's all kinds of good information
Yeah.
on the HHS
Yeah.
website for him to, read and refer to.
Yes. I'm not asking for a vote at this time. I just wanted to get it before you. We have had one request already for the health officer to sign off on a foster home situation.
Maybe we should state why we have a vacancy.
We have a vacancy because the town manager was our health officer. Our assistant health officer left our employment. So right now we are without one.
Fran, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't we required to have one as a municipality?
We are.
My question to everybody is, do we advertise for this?
I don't think it's necessary. I think we as a board have the power to appoint somebody, assuming his credentials are satisfactory.
Scott Vien is our building inspector code enforcement officer. It would be an extension of what he does.
Well, that would be actually very convenient because often the building inspector is involved when certain inspections from the health officer are done. I know when I was health officer, I relied on the building inspector on more than one occasion. So he would also be in a position of observing things that might not come to light otherwise. So
And he also deals with the fire chief. That's part of his current job. He is in office 2 days a week now. He knows what the stipend is. So it's,
Fill out the application, forward it to the board, and we can review it.
I will inform him.
It's not very often we actually have anybody come forward to do things like this.
Usually they're coerced.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Public Works here.
I am here, yes.
And what would you like to, do you have anything you want to talk to us about?
Well, I've been here all morning and all afternoon with Eaton. They're still on site. We're still trying to diagnose the transformer. I have
Yep.
my 2 part-time guys for the electric department here as well. We've narrowed it down to a couple different things. It's more than likely the settings were not completely correct on that transformer. And it caught, they don't know exactly what caused it, but it caused it to shut itself down. It could have been an anomaly. It could have been a power surge. Given that time of the morning, maybe somebody turned something on at Freudenberg that the only large consumer of power. Maybe they turned it on and the settings were so close that it tripped it. However, when that tripped it, it was supposed to open the recloser out at the substation, and that didn't happen. And amongst all their testing, they found that we have a problem with some circuit boards in this panel that is supposed to open the recloser, so it doesn't, doesn't cause further damage. Well, that failed. It should have, when we lost power, it should have opened that, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So we have a problem with that, and that can, it's a little, there's a panel with a bunch of circuit boards in it.
Yeah.
We found the wires have been chewed in there. There was a mouse nest on every circuit board in there. The mice have been having a field day, so they're thinking that needs to be completely replaced, not rebuilt, because it's, whether you can even find it, it's out of the early 80s.
Yeah.
So we have a problem there. They're thinking one more test. Wednesday is the earliest they can get back. They have to test a relay. As long as that passes the test on one relay that they need to look at, and they don't have the equipment today to test that. They have to come back Wednesday, just put a test meter on, a special test meter. And as long as that works, they can figure out, we know there's nothing wrong with our the big transformers that are in the building. That's good. The outside one's good. And it could be just the settings are different, completely different than what the other transformer is that's currently running. And the other transformer that we're running, the town's running on today, is set correctly. This one had different settings in it, so they don't know why they were tight. The tolerances were so tight in this. So they're still here. They're trying to finish up all the testing they got right now. Hopefully over the next hour they're out of here. And when they come back Wednesday, we can energize it to make sure it works. But we still have a problem with the recloser because it doesn't work out there in the substation. So they will have to come back and a rough estimate, if we were to replace that, could be upwards of, $5,000. So it's not real bad.
Is that on the recloser or on the circuit boards?
That's the recloser is the circuit boards.
Okay.
If you think about there's a electrical box in there that's probably, it's 18 inches by 14 inches by, 10 inches deep, and it's got a little door.
Yeah.
Open it up, and there's all kinds of circuit boards in a row up there.
And that's the recloser.
Yeah, and that powers the recloser and tells it to open up when there's a problem, because you need to isolate that power, and it didn't work. It's, the transformer stayed running even though we had a power failure in the substation, and it should shut everything down to protect the transformer out in the big one outside. It didn't. So they know that failed, and they don't think the problems are related.
Okay.
That's not what, the recloser is not why it shut down the whole town. They think it was actually just the settings in there that were wrong, and we hit everything lined up right to make it, the tolerance is too close, and it just like anything in your house, the the circuit breaker popped, but on a great larger scale, so to speak. So I will get a final report from Eaton, I'm sure, after this, but right now that's what I got. Like I said, they're still out there working.
If we decide to replace the recloser circuit board.
Yeah.
Area, when could that be accomplished?
Well, I don't know. These two guys, the guys that come in, they have jobs scheduled everywhere through. They're from Maine, and they go from Maine to Vermont to New Hampshire to wherever they got to go to fix their problems. So number one, we have to locate the right part, and none of those guys that are over there right now recommend trying to find old pieces of equipment to put in there.
No, I would agree with them.
Whether they can find one on eBay or somebody's sitting in a shelf.
No, I would think we'd want to replace with updated equipment.
Yeah, so that's say they can do that, Eaton can do that. And I think it's a matter of just buying it and getting the guys in here to scheduling them in to do the work.
I think that would be a priority, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because we don't have any backups right now.
I think that would be a priority.
But we are using our backup system at this point, so that's what I got so far when I left them. Like I said, it's a lot to it, watching those guys all day and, you know, going back and forth. They're from the substation to the outside transformers, and there's a lot of stuff to test, and there's pits and everything that I didn't even know existed, and we had to shovel all that out and visually check everything. So we've done all that, and they haven't found anything wrong. What they did find wrong is the cheapest thing it could be. The wires actually are good. They think it was probably the incorrect settings that caused the problem. But there was another problem that circuit board should have, nobody knew that it was bad until you have a failure.
Yeah.
And we did have a failure, so we found out opening that board, that panel up, that there was some mouse nests in there. They climbed all the way through the conduit and created a little bit of a mess down there. So that'll all be cleaned up and sealed up by the time we're done.
Good.
Conduit pipes were never sealed with, you know, at the ends to keep critters out of there.
Yeah.
Who knows why? But we're gonna seal them up before we're done.
So it sounds like there's a silver lining to the power outage then. We discovered
Yeah.
some problems that could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, if there'd have been a real true emergency, and it could have damaged the transformer outside, you know, because that reclosure didn't function. We're lucky it was a soft outage, not a hard one, because that's designed to protect that huge transformer outside, and it wouldn't have done it. It wouldn't have protected anything. The arc would have went right through everything and taken out the transformer. So we're lucky that didn't happen, you know. And they're working on it. So the guy the technicians, he's like, I don't know, I'm not gonna, don't quote me on it, but maybe around $5-6 grand. By the time you get all the, you know, the new part put in, they have to wire it in and put the new piece in. It's all electronic nowadays. There's no circuit boards anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where they are now. After this meeting, I'll follow up with them. But they look like they were putting things away when I came into to sign on. So
Thank you, Craig.
Again, thank you, Craig. You've just done an amazing job stepping up to the plate here.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Craig, did you find any documentation on any of these, on this equipment? Is this stuff that should be, you know, tested every year or examined, you know?
Yeah, they found all the documents inside the substation. They're all photocopied, all folded up, crusty, but they found them. And talking with Rob, it's something that should have been done periodically throughout the years. And
Ugh.
never have done. They just never did it.
That-
Are we
I-
likely to have a better estimate on Wednesday, Craig, when we meet?
Well, tomorrow, what will happen tomorrow is I'll talk to the Eaton tomorrow. I'll try to they're gonna give a report this afternoon to what needs to happen, what the parts we need to fix that. And hopefully tomorrow I'll talk to the guy that scheduled all this. His name's John Lucas from Eaton. And I'll try to have him get me a quote on it, and hopefully I'll have something to present to you guys Wednesday.
Great, because I think we ought to make a decision as soon as possible.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have it. Now I can get you guys to, present it to you guys, and you can make a decision, sign it. We'll get the ball rolling on it. But I'll call him tomorrow after the snowstorm.
Thank you.
I'm just going to make a comment, Eli. We're well aware that this needs to be done. I know a couple of days is a couple of days, but I think this is one of those situations where we have a ballpark figure. I'd like to move this forward, but that's just my opinion at the moment.
Well, I agree, Alan, but we can't move it forward until we have, the final assessment. They got to do some more testing and everything. I agree, as soon as possible. And if we have the best estimate tomorrow, then we can make this decision on Wednesday.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome.
I understand finance would like to talk to us. I've shared her email with you all. Let's give Catherine a chance to talk. Or not. Okay, we'll start. The email said that she wants to talk about the 2019 audit results and a plan to address findings. Have we all looked at the report that was sent out?
Yes, I noticed some of the issues have been reoccurring for the past few years and haven't been addressed. So that needs to come to an end. The person who has that oversight of that needs to attend to those issues as soon as possible.
Yeah, it was somewhat disconcerting, to say the least.
Yeah. I was choosing my words very carefully, but yes, I was not pleased
I
with
think we're
what I
gonna
read
get Catherine's
in
voice.
many ways.
Sorry about that. My microphone wasn't working, so I called in on my phone again.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Just talk to yourself.
I
Okay,
was trying to
Catherine,
talk to you all.
uh,
All right.
start at the top.
Okay. Let's see. I was going to try to share my screen here too, so I could show you all the items that I wanted to review. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, I can't do it.
Well, we're gonna,
Disabled. That's okay.
hold on. Hold on. I will make you co-host,
Thanks, Eli.
and you should be able to share now.
Okay, let's see.
I thought I put it over here.
All right, share. So this is from the actual audit report. This is our opinion letter that I first wanted to go over. I kind of highlighted the sections in here that I wanted to review with you all. So this opinion letter tells us where we have an unmodified opinion, which is what we always want to strive for, and then where we have adverse opinions. And then this section down here goes on to explain why we have an adverse opinion for our water, sewer, business type activities, and ultimately governmental activities, which is what everything rolls up into on the face of the financial statements in the audit report. There's two reasons that are outlined here as to why we have an adverse opinion for those. Primarily, one of the issues that we had was the capital assets. We could not provide the auditors with a detailed list of capital assets for the water and sewer funds. Prior to my onboarding with the town, we relied on the auditors to maintain and update those capital asset listings. I did obtain the capital asset work papers from the previous auditors, Melanson and Heath. When I started digging into them, I noticed that the water and sewer capital assets were grouped by asset category as one lump amount for 2015 and prior in all categories such as vehicles, equipment, infrastructure, etc. When we discovered that, I did contact Melanson, who noted that this was the format they had received from Graham & Graham 2 prior auditors ago. I did reach out to Graham & Graham in an attempt to obtain the detailed listing for our records so that we could update and dispose of any fully depreciated assets or assets that were no longer in use by the water and sewer department. Unfortunately, they replied that they had gone to a cloud-based software and no longer had those records. They did say that they had provided the listing to management at the time. So I've reviewed this issue with our water and sewer superintendent, excuse me. I noted that we will have to come up with an inventory of all capital assets by category and then search through our financial records to obtain the historical cost of each item, which is in accordance with GAAP and GASB. Unfortunately, we can't just say this is a fair market value. It's a little bit more legwork than that. The alternative approach to this is finding the email sent from Graham & Graham. That was likely back in early 2016. We do need to address this as soon as possible. So we have a chance of not having an adverse opinion in 2020, at least for this portion of it. The second part of our adverse opinion is because we had offered health insurance benefits to retirees, and in accordance with GASB 75, which is accounting and financial reporting by employers for post-employment benefits other than pensions, we are required to record the liability in our government-wide enterprise and business type activity statements. We would have to pay an actuarial to do a study to determine what the projected cost of this would be. The cost of that varies, but I'd estimate it's probably in the $3,000 to $5,000 range for the original study. What they would do is they would do the study and they would come up with a report that would typically cover like a 3-year period. And then in the 4th year, they would issue a new report to obviously a significantly lower cost, because at that point, they're just projecting based on our original figures. So that's something for the board to consider and discuss. Back when I used to do the auditing, I would say it was split 50-50. Some people would just say, well, we'll just take the adverse opinion. It's not financially beneficial for us to pay that much money to look into a study just to get an opinion and report something on a government-wide level. So that's just, I mean, this is something that I wouldn't record in the town's accounting system. It would just be for reporting in the audit report each year. But I just wanted to go over that with you. The last section in the opinion letter that I wanted to point out is that this year we did not do a management discussion and analysis. In the past, we have done this. I think the timing of completing the 2019 audit and the imminent departure of our former town manager means that this was not addressed. But when we do onboard a new town manager, I would just recommend that we ensure they are willing and capable of completing this for 2020 and going forward, because they will include that in here. Any questions on that? That's just a couple things I wanted to go over in the opinion letter, and then I can go into the governance letter, which has all the more detailed level of findings.
That's a good start, Catherine.
All right, so let's go over to our governance letter. Oh, sorry, I think I closed it. So this is the governance letter, and you can see this section is called other audit findings or issues. So I'll just go through each one of these. I have notes on how we can address each one of these. We do have, quite a bit of comments in here, which I would say is not, it's very typical for when an audit has a new auditor, it's their first year, they typically look at things with, a fresh set of eyes, and we'll deep dive into everything and really kind of outline all of the things that they've identified that we can improve on over the next year. So the first one is our bank reconciliations. So they're recommending to us that bank reconciliations need to be completed by both the town treasurer and myself on a monthly basis. They should be completed by the 15th of the month. And then we should be sitting down and comparing our reconciliations and identifying any variances. Obviously, this is it's time sensitive, and good internal controls would be that we do this on a routine, regular basis, so that any discrepancies are addressed and fixed in a timely fashion. The later these things kind of go, the harder it is to address them. So this is something I do need to work on with the treasurer. In order for me to do a complete bank reconciliation, I would need all of our bank statements as soon as they are available. More recently, I have begun to receive bank statements on a more regular monthly basis. I think I received the December 2020 bank statements on the 19th of January. I am still waiting on the treasurer's reconciliations for that time period. During 2020, we went through many changes, including the software merge from QuickBooks to BMSI for our utilities funds. So back when we were using QuickBooks, we used the QuickBooks reconciliation module to reconcile to the bank statements, and then we would provide the reconciliation to the treasurer for her review and approval. So when we did that merge, we did ask the treasurer to resume completing those reconciliations. During that time, we did go many months when we were waiting on bank statements and reconciliations. At one point in time, I think it was October, we did receive a big group of many months of statements and reconciliations from the treasurer. Because we had so many months received all at once, unfortunately, it's not something that I've completely gone through and completed yet. We have started that process, and I did speak with the treasurer, noting that we would need to sit down and compare the reconciliations and review any discrepancies we did have. Hopefully by the end of this calendar year, we'll have a much more timely system in place that works well for us both. I'm thinking this finding will probably be a repeat finding in the 2020 audit. Hopefully we'll fix that for 2021. Stale dated checks. This one should be a simple fix. I can review that with the treasurer and follow up with any vendors or individuals for any stale dated checks. The auditors recommend that we review anything 6 months or older and either void the check and reissue that if necessary. So once we have our routine monthly reconciliation process effectively in place, we'll be able to follow up on these items more regularly. This will likely be a repeat finding in 2020, pending review of the December 2020 reconciliations. This next one is town policies. I think this is a priority item for 2021 to review all of our town policies and ensure they have been updated within the last 3 years. We do have a binder that I know I've reviewed with some of you over the past couple of weeks as you've been in the town hall. That shows our town ordinances and policies. When we did take a look at it, some of the policies are not completely formally signed off on by the board. So we should especially review those policies and ensure that either the policies are signed off on by a quorum of the board, or that we have a copy of the minutes adopting said policy attached in that binder. This will be an important process to loop the new town manager in on. During this review, we should also review our current internal controls and practices to ensure they align. That's one of the things the auditors are always going to look at. What are we doing and what does our policy say? So anytime there's a discrepancy there, we'll get a comment like this on that. This will likely be a repeat finding in the 2020 audit, since we received our 2019 audit in the beginning of 2021. The next finding is IT policies. I know CCS had submitted their process regarding the data security, disaster recovery, and data retention to our former town manager. When we were finalizing the 2019 audit, I did follow up with CCS and they sent me a write-up on that. We could develop this into a policy. It would be pretty straightforward. I do have some other IT concerns with things such as like email encryption. I think this is an area we can't really afford to overlook because fraud and data breaches are at an all-time high. I'd recommend this is something we review on an annual basis with our third-party IT consultant, CCS, just to ensure that we are protected, that the data on our computers, not just the cloud, is backed up. But unfortunately, this will also be like a repeat finding in the 2020 audit. For purchase orders, I think for this, I'm going to just pull up our purchase order policy. I think there's a couple things going on here. We have this policy, and then we also have what our current practices are, which I think don't align. So I think this is a case where we just need to review what the internal controls are, see if they make sense, and maybe update the policy accordingly. I don't think that purchase orders, this is just my opinion, obviously the board is, we'll go whatever direction the board deems fit. I don't think the purchase orders for a town of our size and with our staffing levels, I don't think it typically works well. I think obtaining the appropriate signatures on an invoice is an acceptable level of approval and internal control. Ideally, we would have threshold identified for department heads, town manager, and board of selectmen level approvals, which is, I think, what we're actually doing. And you'll see this policy doesn't really outline that. We could have levels for where a certain number of quotes should be obtained. We do have a bidding policy. Let me see if that's right here. For any goods or services over 10,000, we do require the sealed bid. So I think that policy, I think that's a good threshold for that, and that's a good policy. But we could implement something with our purchasing policy to have quotes, like we need to get 3 quotes, for example, over whatever the difference is, 5,000 or whatever threshold the board deems necessary. But this finding will likely be a repeat finding in 2020. Cash receipts. They are recommending that we have pre-numbered receipts utilized by the tax office. I can definitely review this with our town clerk tax collector and ensure this is an internal control we implement. I think this process could be beneficial both for the town clerk tax collector and the utilities clerk. It could be as simple as a 3-ply cash receipt book that we keep on the counter. The top copy goes to the customer, a yellow copy gets attached to the daily cash receipt logs, and the pink copy stays in the books. This will likely be a repeat finding for 2020 as well. Adjusting journal entries. Here's some good news. This one was rectified in 2020. Since I came on board, whenever I do a journal entry, I always give it to the town manager for review and approval. I'm sure most of you are now familiar with this process, as during our current lapse in the town manager position, I've given you some journal entries to review and approve. So that one will be rectified. payroll. Again, this one is rectified. This had to do with over the electric department. The entire function was performed by 2 people. So they're asking for some more segregation of duties. So since those tasks have now been brought under my position, it's no longer all done through QuickBooks. So we've got some better segregation of duties in place and internal control. So that one should also go away in 2020. For the utilities comment, we have a couple of items to be addressed here. The easiest way to address this would be to segregate the collection of cash receipt function from the billing function for the utilities. Right now, we have one person that does the entire process. And we also are in a position where we're not having the monthly billing reviewed and approved by either the Board of Selectmen or the town manager. So especially the signing off on the billing, that's something I would like to implement with this month's billing. Because this wasn't addressed in 2020, this one will likely be a repeat finding as well. Account coding, this has been rectified in 2020. All invoices that come across are coded and have proper levels of approval prior to payment processing. And if it isn't, and we don't know the account to be charged, we typically send that back to the department head before processing. Late payments. So our biggest challenge in 2020 was COVID-19 has definitely had an impact on the timeliness of the snail mail system in general. In particular, that was noted during the holiday season. I think at one point I saw it was like a 3-week lag, which was really challenging. But we definitely are doing our best to ensure that anytime any interest or fees are applied, we either call the vendor or write a letter and submit that with our payment. And in most cases, the vendors do agree to remove them. Everyone is in the same position that we are with this pandemic, unfortunately. And we just try to process our invoices on a routine. We do it on a bi-weekly basis, and sometimes we'll do an additional smaller manifest if the need arises. Capital asset listing. So I've already spoken to this regarding the water and sewer. So in addition to what I previously stated, this is an area of focus for me. In 2020, I worked with the department heads to get this list updated for the 2019 audit to the best of my ability. I'm going to continue that practice going forward. What I typically do is keep a folder of invoices for items consisting of a capital asset addition, and I add it to the list. Then once I think the list is completed to the best of my knowledge, I review that with the department heads to ensure that all additions have been identified and to identify any disposal. So if, we got rid of a vehicle or something, that would come off the list. Debit cards. This is something that I would highly recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we have a policy, actually. We have a debit card policy. And I would recommend that we disallow the use of debit cards. Debit card transactions entirely circumvent the internal controls and policies over purchases. If I were to get these on a manifest, well, first of all, so the process is I get like a monthly envelope of debit card receipts. So I wouldn't be able to even include that in our biweekly accounts payable. And I would have to set up a vendor in BMSI for every single place a debit card was used. The easiest way to enter those is adjusting journal entries, which is the way I've been posting them. I do get approval for the adjusting journal entries, but obviously that's after the fact. Since we also had a timeliness issue with receiving bank statements, if anything, was accidentally charged and 30 days or more had gone by, we might have a hard time getting those charges reversed for us. To me, it's an area of high risk, especially since we don't have like an actual statement that we receive or have online access to look at that activity. And, if we do get rid of the debit cards, we would just need to ensure that all department heads have a town credit card. I know there's at least one that does not. Not that I think our town credit cards are that wonderful. I think we should look for a better option, but we don't have a comment on that. So I'll put a pin in that to talk about another day. That covers all of the comments that we have in that. So I'm going to stop sharing and listen for some feedback from the board.
I don't recall in the 3 years I've served on the board, we've ever reviewed this. We were provided with the document, and that was about the extent of how we, received the document, we could read it. Don't recall ever discussing, and that's why when I saw some of these issues were a continuation of at least 2 years of audits that I have reviewed before, I was a little disturbed by that. And it's probably good that we got some a new auditor to review some of these things. We have a little time constraint. We have only a few weeks left before the board may change to enact any of these. So what's anybody else's ideas? Is this something we should try to attack now? I would hate to say leave it and roll it over because it could fall in the cracks again. And the other thing, we need to review those policies. I noticed many of them aren't signed, aren't dated. So that, to me, they're just words on paper. Somebody said, well, you can go try to find the meeting, the minutes where maybe these decisions were made, but that's really, I don't think that's a very good way of doing our business. We should have everything up to date, signed, and available, not only to the staff, but to the public if they so ask what our policies are.
Catherine, I'm grateful that you brought these to our attention. Like Kathleen said, it's never been brought to our attention quite so plainly before, but I'm also very grateful that you're being proactive in either taking care of some of these things or suggesting fixes. I think that's extremely helpful for us. And I agree with Kathleen, we should address the ones that we can easily address as soon as possible.
Let's move on to utility billing. Catherine, you're still up.
Alrighty, so I was just grabbing some water. Let's see. So for the utility billing, as I'm sure most of you saw, unfortunately on last month's bills, we still had a debit amount that was generated on the bills. The debit was created by Able software programmers in order to rectify the incorrect ending balance on the December 2020 bills, and in turn, the beginning balance on the January bills. We do anticipate this debit to disappear on this month's bill. We did see an improvement in the January billing where the ending balance was the actual amount of the bill to be paid. On a personal level, when processing the town's electric bills, when I added the current monthly charges, it equaled the balance due. So that was a big improvement. And we hope that this month that there won't be any additional lines on the bill, so to speak. Those lines are created by the Able software programmers. It's not something that we're inserting on the bills. And unfortunately, I think when you have a company, a third party, and you have maybe several programmers, maybe it's not the same person doing the edits on the bills every time. So you have these different lines that pop up. Unfortunately, processing the electric bills this month will be the same very manual process for the finance department. While we have received those handheld units for scanning the electric meters, each individual customer and meter has to be manually programmed by our staff. So the journeyman who was working on this, but he has since been deployed. So the electric department is nearly finished. I think they're nearly finished. Correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, they might be all the way finished at this point with documenting all of the meter reads for February.
Yep, they're all done. The handheld meters have only been halfway inputted at this point. And the other two remaining guys, I don't think know how to do it.
Right. And I think the goal is for when we do have all that information in is we'll probably do a couple months where we do both the old manual process, writing the reads down in the books, as well as the handheld, just to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Which is another problem, because after Friday, I only have one person to read meters next month.
Right. Yep. We have some other items to address there as well. So the water sewer reads have been completed. When our utilities clerk went to upload the data to her system, she noticed that the data did not look different from the month prior. Recently, our third-party IT moved the CCS, they moved the water sewer utility software from the finance computer's desktop to the cloud. And when they did that, they had to link the data path as well. So the utilities clerk had contacted IT, who was working on mapping the cloud-based software to the correct data path so the reads can be pulled in. We do anticipate them mailing the water sewer bills by the end of this week, so long as IT is able to rectify the issue in a timely fashion. And once the water sewer bills are out, we'll focus on getting the electric bills out the door as well. We do understand the frustration of our customers regarding the billing glitches we've been experiencing over the past several months. We do apologize and can empathize with the frustration. Please rest assured that we are doing our best and working with Able Software to rectify these issues. We hope this month's billing will yield no glitches. And we would just like to remind our customers of a few different things. We do appreciate your understanding and patience and your cooperation with a couple of these items. Would just help really make sure that things are running as smoothly as possible. So just a couple of reminders. Please remember that we cut off cash receipt posting on the 10th of every month. This means that we had to have received your payment by the 10th in order for that payment to be reflected and credited on this month's bill, and only pay the current bill amount. Please be sure to mail all utility bill payments to P.O. Box 517, Ashland, New Hampshire 03217. We are no longer using the 6 Collins Street remittance address for utility bills, so please update your records accordingly. Please ensure that you're endorsing all checks payable to Ashland Electric for your electric bills. Please do enclose your remittance stub, which is the bottom portion of your bill, the bottom third of your bill, with your payment so that we can properly apply your payment to the electric account. And on that remittance stub, please also document the amount paid. This is particularly important if you have multiple accounts with the electric department and are remitting only one check. And that's all I have for you on the utility billing update. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. You have staffing listed. Before we discuss that in office environment, I'd like a little bit more information from you prior to discussing it in public or in a non-public session. As far as your terms of employment, I think that needs to be a non-public. And if you're ready to go, if you're ready to do that, let me see if I can get the right one.
Yes, I think that's all non-public stuff.
Yeah.
And I know that Craig, I think, had something as well for non-public. I might have a little bit more information from an HR standpoint that might help with his non-public item.
Greg, you have a non-public?
Yeah, last time we met, I think you would put that on the agenda, right? Remember the last meeting we had?
I'd have to go back and check my notes.
Yeah, the special meeting, I wanted to talk to you today about, Rob.
Okay.
Remember that? We had that special
Yes,
meeting.
I thought we set that up for next week, for Wednesday.
No, next Wednesday was strictly for the meters.
Okay,
Get you information
Okay.
about meters, and you were gonna try to,
I jotted down the wrong date.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad I've got my good glasses on. So, personnel. The first with Craig would be RSA 91-A:3H, the hiring of any person as a public employee. David, I'm going to ask you to leave us.
I'll make a motion that we go into non-public according to 91, RSA 91. Is it G? Did you say? E?
H.
H.
I'll second.
Just let me. I've got to lock the meeting.
Are we gonna vote before you lock the meeting?
Yes,
Sorry.
Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Alan Silly,
Aye.
Dan Newton,
Aye.
Andy Fitch,
Aye.
and Eli Badger says aye. We're back in our public session. I will take a motion to go into non-public and under RSA 91-A:3 subsection 2, small a, the dismissal or promotion or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee.
Could you hold just for a minute? The document I got is setting utility rates dated 5/7/19. I think it was for water and sewer, but is this something we can use in electric, or is it totally different?
I think it would be totally different.
Okay,
Yeah.
it looks like it was a PowerPoint presentation. Should I keep it? Should I throw it away?
Keep it.
Okay,
Always-
Never know.
always-
thank you.
Always have
Thank you for
your
let
file.
me interrupt. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into non-public?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
We're now in public again. No. One decision was made, and that was to take our finance officer, Catherine Davis, off of probation. She is now a full employee. Do I hear any other motions or any other issues you want to discuss? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
So
Come on,
moved.
Fran. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you all
Thank you all.
Wednesday evening.
Yes.
Okay, stay safe.